what was the War of the Roses? The War of the Roses between 1455 to 85 in English history were a series of dynastic civil wars whose violence and civil strife preceded the strong government of the Tudors, fought between the House of Lancaster and York for the English throne. The wars were named many years after for the supposed pages of the containing parts, the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of Lancaster. How did the War of the Roses get his name? As I said before, the War of the Roses were fought between the House of Lancaster and York for the English throne. The wars were named many years after from the supposed pages of the containing parts, the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of Lancaster. Both houses claimed the throne through descent from the sons of Edward III. What caused the War of the Roses? In the middle 15th century, rich management with private armies dominated the English countryside. Lawlessness was rife and taxation burdensome. Henry VII experienced a spell of madness and was dominated by his queen, called Margaret of Anjou. In 1453, when Henry lapsed into insanity, a powerful baronial clique installed Richard, Duke of York, as protector of the throne. Henry recovered the throne in 1455, reestablishing the authority of Margaret. That is why York took up arms and starting the War of the Roses. However, the War of the Roses finally resolved. Henry Tudor, later called Henry VII, defeated and killed Richard III at Bosworth Field on August 22, 1485, bringing the War of the Roses to a close by his marriage with to Edward IV's daughter, Elizabeth of York, in 1486. Henry united the Yorkists and Lancaster claims. So, Henry defeated a Yorkist rising supported the pretended the Lambert Simon on June 16, 1487, a day that some historians prefer over the traditional.
In 1422, Henry VI succeeded his father Henry V and became King of England at just 9 months old. Thanks to his father's military conquests, Henry VI also became the disputed King of France. In 1445, Henry VI married Margaret of Anjou, a noble and strong-willed French woman, whose ambition and political savvy overshadowed her husband. All was not well in King Henry's court. He had little interest in politics and was a weak ruler. This incited rampant lawlessness throughout his realm and opened the door for power-hungry nobles and kingmakers to plot behind his back.
85. Richard of York. Henry's lack of leadership led him to lose almost all his holders in France. The corruption and mismanagement of power in England caused frustrated property owners and peasants from Kent to revolt in 1450. Led by J.K. the March on London and present Henry with a list of demands known as the Complaint of the Poor Commons of Kent. Henry never officially agreed to Kate's demands, one of which was to recall Richard, Duke of York, from Ireland back to England. Richard of York, as great grandson of King Edward III, had a strong competitive claim on the English throne. After a time, Henry put an end to Kate's rebellion and pardoned the rebels, except from J.K. himself, who would later die from a mortal wound during his arrest. Henry believed that Richard of York was behind Kate's rebellion. This rivalry set the stage for 30 years of battles for power involving three generations of Yorks and Lancasters.
The Madness of King Henry VI. By 1452, Richard of York had returned to England and decided his mission in life was to rid Henry of his corrupt advisors, particularly Edmund Beaufort, Duke of Somerset. He raised an army and marched on London declaring fealty to Henry, while also compelling him to remove Somerset from his post. But Somerset held on until Henry succumbed to his first bout of madness in 1454, leaving him virtually catatonic and unable to reign. During Henry's illness, Richard became Lord Protector of England and imprisoned Somerset in Tower of London. It was a great victory. However, Queen Margaret had given birth to Henry's only son, Edward of Lancaster, in 1453, which witnessed Richard's claim to the throne. In February 1455, Henry recovered from his spell of insanity almost as suddenly as he yielded to it. Richard and his ministers were sent away, and Somerset reinstated.
On May 22, 1455, Richard of York, allied with Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, marched against Henry at St. Albans. After failed negotiations, the brave yet vicious battle raged through the town's street and left Somerset dead and Henry wounded. The Yorks took Henry prisoner and Richard became Lord Protector again. Queen Margaret and her young son, fearful for their lives, went into exile.
The Battle of Bloodhead. As Richard maintained a shaky hold on England, Margaret worked behind the scenes to restore Henry to the throne and uphold her son's place as his rightful heir. Fearing his days were numbered, Richard formed an army commanded by Lord Salisbury. Salisbury's army met Margaret's large and well-equipped army, commanded by Lord Audley, at Bloodhead on September 23, 1459, in Staffordshire, though outnumbered 2-1. The Yorks soundly defeated the Lancasters.
The Battle of Ludlow Bridge and Northampton. The Battle of Ludlow Bridge was not weighed with munitions, but was a battle of courage and wills. By autumn of 1459, Henry and his suite has once again mustered a significant army, which now includes many York deserts, Richard of York, Salisbury, Warwick, and their forces withdrew to Ludlow Bridge near Ludford, Yorkshire, to stand against Henry and his men. On the night of October 12, many Yorks defected and their leaders fled. Richard himself fled back to Ireland, but Richard and his supporters were finished, raising Henry and Margaret. In June of 1460, Richard's allied Warwick entered London with thousands of men. As they advanced on Henry's army in Northampton, victory seems unlikely.
The Battle of Wakefield. With Henry under his control, Richard again proclaimed himself and his heirs Henry's successors. Henry agreed so long as he retained the crown until his death. Their agreement was passed by the English Parliament and called the Act of Accord. The ambitious Queen Margaret, however, would have known of his compromise and raised another army to rise against the Georges. Richard set out with his forces to defeat Margaret's army and settle the merit of succession once and for all. The armies cached at Wavell Green near Sandal Castle, but things didn't work out as Richard had planned. He was killed, his severed head was put on display wearing a paper crown.
The Battle of Towton. Richard's son Edward, Earl of March, succeeded his father. He also took over where Richard left off against the Lancasters. In the middle of winter, 1461, York forces defeat the Lancasters at the Battle of Mortimer Cross. Weeks later, they were crushed by the Lancasters at the Second Battle of St. Albans. It was here King Henry was rescued and reunited with his queen, but Edward wouldn't give it up. In March of 1461, Edward confronted the Lancaster army in a snowstorm in the middle of a field near Towton, North Yorkshire. It is believed that over 50,000 men engaged in brutal fighting, and around 28,000 died. The Battle of Towton was the bloodiest battle in England's history. The Georges emerged victorious, and Henry, Margaret, and their son fled to Scotland, leaving Edward King of England.
Power changed hands again and again. Edward IV may have gained the throne, but he underestimated the deposed Queen Margaret's zeal and ambition. With the help of her compatriots in France, she ousted Edward and restored her husband to the throne in October 1470. Edward went into hiding but wasn't idle. He mastered an army and won great victories at the Battle of Barnet and the Battle of Tewkesbury. At Tewkesbury, Henry and Margaret's only son was killed, and the royal couple were captured and held in the Tower of London. The throne of England reverted back to Edward. On May 21, 1471, deposed King Henry VI died, supposedly of sadness, although some historians believe Edward had him murdered. Queen Margaret was eventually released and made her way back to Rome in France, where she died in 1482.
Princess in the Tower. King Edward IV died in 1483 and was succeeded by his young son Edward V. Richard III, the ambitious brother of Edward IV, became his nephew Edward's Lord Protector, but he plotted to have Edward V and his younger brother declared illegitimate. The power-hungry Richard succeeded in his plot and was crowned in July 1483. To eliminate any threat to his throne, Richard III had his young nephews held in the Tower of London, supposedly for their protection. With both boys, now famous as the Princess in the Tower, vanished, and Richard was accused of ordering them murder, the king quickly lost favor with his people.
The Tudors. As Richard's right to the throne became tenuous, the Lancasterians Henry Tudor, with the help of France and many nobles, staked his claim to the crown. He met Richard on the battlefield at Bosworth on August 22, 1485. After fighting valiantly, Richard III was killed. Legend has it his crown was placed on Henry's head at the very spot where Richard fell. Henry was declared King Henry VII. After his official coronation, Henry married Elizabeth of York to reconcile the long-feuding Lancaster and York houses. This union ended the Wars of the Roses and gave rise to the Tudor dynasty.